Learning Theorists and Theories Impacts on Education by Erin Knight. Albert Bandura, 1925 to 2021. He was a Canadian psychologist and a professor at Stanford University. He is attributed with the social cognitive theory. He is well known for his Bobo study on modeling aggression. For this study, he had a small child observe a lady beating up an inflatable clown. Well, after the child was able to witness this event, they took the child from the room and put them in a room with toys, and that child modeled the same behavior that he had seen in the room by the lady. So it was really showing that young children especially learn from adults and by modeling. He also is known for the theory of self-efficacy, and that's really a person's belief in their own capabilities, and that really influences on whether or not they're going to be able to complete a task. I see this in my classroom often. If a student doesn't think they can, they usually don't, but if they think they can and they try, eventually they will. So we see that a lot in the classroom. This is social cognitive theory, and it is an offshoot of behaviorism. It was still kind of under the behaviorism umbrella, so I'm going to explain behaviorism a little bit as well. As many of us in education are familiar, one big example of that is Pavlov, and he used a bell and food to condition dogs to salivate. Eventually, it was the food that was requiring the salivation. It was a lot of conditioning. And then eventually he was able to get the dogs to salivate just with the sound of the bell without food being nearby. So a lot of positive reinforcement. And social cognitive theory is, as I said, an offshoot of that. It states that learning occurs in a social content with a dynamic and reciprocal interaction of the person and the environment and the behavior. This also has the positive and negative reinforcements and consequences. It introduces the social aspect of it, which is something that we see, I use a lot in our classroom. Kids can see other students' behaviors, they know the social interactions, and that really helps form some of their behaviors. They're not going to do something if they see someone else doing it repeatedly and getting in trouble. So, it's something that we see a lot in the classroom, or I use a lot in the classroom. Social cognitive theory in action in the classroom. Some really good examples of this I do, especially at the beginning of the year, but being a kindergarten teacher, it is needed many times throughout the year, is teacher modeling. At the very beginning of the year, we model everything. We model how to sit on the carpet, how to raise your hand, how to ask for water, how to let the teacher know you need to go to the bathroom. And we model it explicitly, and students get to practice and continue doing that. So that really lets them know what they're expected to do. They do this in dramatic play centers. A lot of the times at the beginning of the year, we have it set up as just a house, and students model behaviors that their families do at home in the kitchen. And throughout the year, we change it. So like it might be a grocery store, and they model those types of behaviors. So there's it gives them an outlet for modeling different things that they have seen in their life or in their day-to-day. Read alouds. These are wonderful for social stories and introducing skills, and when students need to kind of really make a connection. For example, there's a story that we read called Herdy Feelings, and it really lets students kind of see the behavior. We talk about behaviors. In this story, the character, every time somebody gives them a compliment, she thinks that they are making fun of her or saying something negative. So we really get to see that and point out, oh no, that's not what's going on. It's a very good teaching tool for students when they get to see those different types of interactions modeled in stories, which they can relate to very well as well. And then social stories. These I've used in my kindergarten classroom, but I know they use them in special ed classrooms, and that really just they're short little stories that are easy for students to understand. Sometimes they have words, sometimes they don't, and that really just models appropriate behaviors. It might be a social story on how to walk in the hallway, things like that. technology integration. I really think that this could be integrated using video clips and interactive lessons on the Promethean board so that students can kind of manipulate them and work together. Robert Mills Gagne, 1916 to 2002. Robert Gagne was an American psychologist and professor. He is associated with cognitivism. He is also well known for his 9 events of instruction. And as a teacher, I feel like I use his 9 events of instruction all the time when teaching my students. You always have to start by getting their attention, informing the learners of the objectives, stimulating that background knowledge, present contact, give them chance, provide learning guidance, give them time to practice the activity, provide feedback, assess their performance, and then hopefully they'll be able to take that learning and transfer it into other learning. Cognitivism. This theory, it really focuses on how learners receive, process, store, and retrieve information. This also is related to schema theory, and I use this a lot in my classroom because I always tell them we're going to activate their schema, activate their background knowledge. So when students receive a new idea or topic of information, they interpret it, they might create a mental picture, and they tuck it away as a schema, a unit of understanding. And so the schema theory is when students have multiple schemata that they start making connections between the schemata, and it makes a big web of understanding, a web of knowledge. And so that is something that is just another way of how students can process or organize their information as they are learning. Cognitivism in the classroom. A lot of this is done, especially in a kindergarten classroom, through questioning. First, usually when I'm starting a new lesson with new material, I like to build background knowledge. And especially with my young students, everybody comes with different background knowledge because they are diverse learners. So sometimes we have to kind of start by helping them build that background knowledge and giving them ideas of things that they can use to build their schema. So we always try to build that background knowledge so that gives them a place where they can, as they start learning, they can go, oh yeah, and they connect that information, and it helps move the new information into working knowledge and then hopefully into long-term memory. Activating prior knowledge, again, questioning. We want to try to trigger their learning to attach to something else that they've previously learned, again, to complete that learning process and get the new information so that they will have that in their working knowledge as well as long-term. Discussions about learning. I use this a lot in my classroom many times when I'm talking about learning or a new skill, or especially in writing. I kind of verbalize my thought process for the students because they have to learn how's that going to look. They're just 5 and 6 years old. So when I model what my thinking process is, it helps the students so that when they are in the same situation, they remember, oh, that's when I need to do this. And that helps them start to organize their information and their thoughts so that they can use that in their learning. Technology integration. I really feel like STEM activities are really great for these type of activities for students because they encourage students to work together. They activate background knowledge. They're trying to solve a problem in a different way. And along with coding activities, these both are different ways students can take information that they know and utilize them in a different way, which again is activating their brain and connecting new information to old information and just really making all those learning connections for them. Lev Vygotsky, 1896 to 1934. Lev Vygotsky was a psychologist from Russia. As an early childhood major, I learned a lot about Vygotsky and all of the other educational theorists, and they are all very impactful in my classroom. He is known for his zone of proximal development, or ZPD, and this is often used in the classroom by teachers when they're scaffolding lessons for students. So the main idea of that is you kind of you look at what the student can do, and that is without help, independently. And then you start to design an activity that they can do maybe with a little bit of assistance, with some guidance. And then eventually you broaden out to where they can do it without guidance. You don't want to go from where they're at and jump into an activity that is something they could do without guidance, because that will cause frustration for the student and they will possibly give up or not even try. So that is a very important theory that he came up with that is used in my classroom often. He is also attributed with social constructivism. Constructivism is a theory that students are active participants in their own learning. This is different from the other two because in those ones, the teachers still kind of played a more central role. In this one, students learn from social interactions, experiences, problem solving. They are actively manipulating the material and using it and inferring it. Kind of takes all of the other theories and kind of applies them all together. The teachers plan the activities using scaffolding to help students construct an understanding of the content. Constructivism in the classroom. One example of constructivism in my classroom would be guided reading groups. Students are grouped by their reading level, and they come to my teacher table, and usually we start with some reviewing of lessons, but then we go over the teaching instruction, the objective, and I might model it for the students, and then they have an active role of reading. They are actively reading their books and trying to apply the lesson that I showed them, whether it be a reading strategy or working with words. So they are actively reading, they're listening to each other, so they are learning not just from the teacher, they're playing the role there. Role playing, we use this a lot in the classroom. I like to do it especially when I introduce new games or new centers for the students to play in. We talk about how the materials are going to be used. We show examples. Students might come up and show an example of how not to play with the material. And then we go back and talk about, okay, now how do you need to do it? So we do a lot of role playing in the classroom because in kindergarten, students do learn from each other and they learn from modeling. And so they need to be shown correct rules and procedures. Experiments. Experiments are really fun in the classroom. Students are always active in this. It definitely triggers all of the higher thinking kids are, trying to connect their background knowledge. They are making predictions. They are seeing the outcome, then trying to figure out, okay, well, why did that happen? It just really triggers all of those good higher level thinking skills. Technology integration in the classroom. One of the activities I chose was iReady. And we use this in our classroom for reading and math. And at the beginning of the year, students take an assessment. They actually take it 3 times during the year. And then they have personalized instruction that is scaffolded for that student. And it kind of helps them as they grow. It does not take them from where they're at and give them something too hard because they will be frustrated and give up. So my students really enjoy using this, and which is why I know it must be really good, because if they were frustrated, they would not want to use this tool. Khan Academy. Khan Academy has a kids app where students can take their avatar and visit and do different learning activities. And students, when they get it right, they can progress. If they get something wrong, they have immediate feedback. It tells them, it might show them a little video of what they should have done, or a video re-explaining the idea or the question, and so that the student will be able to be successful. Learning A to Z. This is a reading app that we use in our classroom, and this kind of goes along with the guided reading example, but it gives students an opportunity to hear reading. They can listen to reading. They get to practice reading, and they can even record their reading and send it to their teacher. Their parents can hear it, and we can provide feedback. And Brainpop Junior is another one where I like this app because students are an active role looking for videos. They can find a subject they like. For example, if a student really likes science, they can go find a science video and watch a science video and learn some more about a topic that's interesting to them. Then they can take a quiz, and they also can, sometimes they have little activities that you can do with the lesson as well that they can manipulate on the screen. So I really feel like I use all of the learning theories in my classroom. And I really feel like to create the best lessons, you kind of have to have pieces of behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism so that you can create a well-rounded lesson that will really reach all of your diverse students. And I think that they are all important, and there are ways we can definitely integrate technology, some more than others. However, I am excited to continuing to look for ways to introduce these ideas with technology in my classroom.